All right. Well, okay. So Rohan, you and I will be the host here. So, thanks everybody. Welcome to the. I will welcome. My name's John Troyer. I will welcome you first to the September Oracle Ravello vExpert community call. I am here today with Rohan. Rohan, who is a part of the Ravello team and is our co-host here this morning. Rohan, good to see you.
Good to see you too, John. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm ready to listen to everyone on the panel. There's a lot to learn from everyone here. So,
oh man, you're going to talk too, but go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to, just in case I met some of you last month, I'm working with, I've been a Ravello PM for a few years, and I'm also working on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure now. So I'm glad to be a part of the communities, and I've worked with John for the past couple of years and then met them all at and met some of you at Ravello Blogger Days as well. So it's always an exciting group, this one.
Yeah, great. And also, so you are there. You are calling in. You're in Redwood Shores at the moment.
Yes.
Okay, in the big castle-like Oracle headquarters. Since we were talking about this in the early part of the recording, but since we just hopefully cut off the front part, can we start a little late? I am here on the big island of Hawaii. It is a beautiful morning. I'm on the Kona side. We just swam in Kealakekua Bay with wild spinner dolphins, which was fabulous. So that's why I'm a little bit tropical today. So anyway, welcome everybody. There's some metaphor there or some joke to be made about, resiliency or keep going. But anyway, let's today. So today is a really interesting one. We had some lab projects planned, but as all good lab projects, ambitious lab projects do, they kind of fell through, which is kind of why we pulled this together. But I think actually it's going to turn out to be very cool. So we have 3 panelists today, all vExperts, all who work with Ravello and have used it. This is we're going to explore what they do, what they think is interesting about the platform. Obviously, we've got the team here to answer questions. Let's make it a discussion. Let's keep unmute yourself and ask questions. Feel free to break in. I'm on an iPhone, so I can't really see the chat very easily. So if there are people, maybe Rohan, you can watch that, and if there are questions, you can ask them to chime in or ask them for them. And well, let's just get moving. So our panelists, would the 3 panelists like to introduce yourself? Matt, would you like to go first since I saw you first?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me. So I'm Matt Crape. I am located up in the Toronto area of Canada, and you can find me on Twitter at MattITGuy, and I blog at 42u.ca.
Awesome. And Ben, are you there?
Yeah, my name is Ben Clayton. I'm director of DevOps for a company called Company Kitchen here in sunny Kansas City. It's not quite as beautiful as John's location, but anyone want to come visit, I'd gladly give the grand tour.
Awesome. And Ather Bag. Ather, I actually don't even, I've known you for years, and I'm not actually sure how I've been pronouncing the name.
It's Ather.
Ather. Okay.
But then, as long as I know it's my name.
Yeah. Just don't call me late for dinner. Don't call me late for dinner, right? Ather. Okay, awesome. So introduce yourself and et cetera. You're calling in from England.
Yes, I am from the UK. I live near, a town called Leighton Buzzard, which many people in the UK even don't know about. I'm a solutions architect. Recently joined Rackspace. I used to be cloud architect at Atos. vExpert for many years. Blogger, podcaster, Open TechCast. My blog is atherbake.com. My Twitter handle is atherbake. So everything is atherbake. Basically, if you know my name, you can reach me anytime. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Well, why don't we set the? Well, actually, since we're talking, why don't Ather? What are you? Talk a little bit about how you use Ravello and how you have been using Ravello. We had a couple of setup questions, but we can explore. We can go whichever direction we go. And this is a no blame zone. If it turns out in the course of this discussion that people are using their Ravello vExpert setup to do things that we didn't actually anticipate, like using it as international proxies for watching Netflix or whatever, you can tell us. We won't blame anybody, but that's not really what it was set up for. The Ravello team offered this a couple years back for lab work, and they thought it would be useful for labs. Obviously, they use it for labs. They use it. Their customers sometimes use it for sales demos. They now use it for production. They use it on different clouds, including OCI and others. And they've always been super supportive of the community. So there, I'll pitch that. That's my commercial. But so, Adar, what do you end up using it for? What have you been using it for, and has that changed over the years?
Mostly the same, but I was fortunate enough to get very early access, even before it became OCI or OCI became available. So in the older days. So since then, I've used it for many vSphere setups, test setups, beta versions at times. One major or frequent deployment is Autolab, as you would expect, one of the very popular ones in the beginning. So it's mainly for test purposes in my case. Like I said, various products, but one of the things on my wish list has always been to do the different things, more complex setups. It's just that time doesn't allow a lot of playing. So wish I could do more. But since OCI became available, did some quick setups to do some performance testing as well. Which obviously was much better than what it used to be. So I can see many uses for it in that space. So yep, that's what I've been using it for over the years.
Has your use been mostly? So has it been all vSphere? Have you used it any with any workloads that weren't running on vSphere, or mostly as a vSphere lab? It sounds like.
For me, mostly it has been vSphere so far. I did retrofit. Well, tried to run the different. Well, the Nutanix, for example. So that kind of thing I did do, but I didn't do a huge amount on that. It was just more like a proof of concept and to see if I can actually get it to work. But no workloads as such.
Okay, good, thanks. Well, let's move on. So Ben, we'll go back through the panel. Ben, can you talk a little bit about what? So you're interesting, right? Because you're a VMUG president, Ben, and you were former VMUG president, I guess, or you're outgoing VMUG president.
Still president until the end of the year.
And so definitely VMware head, but also like you just said, you're a DevOps guy too, right? So can you talk a little bit about what have you been using the labs for?
Yeah, I've used the labs a little bit. I mean, the Auto Lab is super easy to test some VMware stuff from the get-go. But really, I've found it's been best for a lot of open source projects. I've in the early days of containers, Ravello was one of the first places I spun up Docker, just because wasn't really set up for a corporate network. Docker was tricky to get around corporate firewalls and proxies. So it was really handy to have the Ravello workspace to spin up and test Docker. Since then, I've moved on to like Rancher, Salt Stack. When I was studying for some of my Red Hat certifications, I was able to do a full Red Hat lab in Ravello, and it was really easy to test out some stuff that I wouldn't feel comfortable on corporate workloads. So it was nice to have that separated. Lately, I've been using it. I've got a Terraform box out there, so I can use it to deploy workloads to AWS. And that's really what I've been using it for lately. But
I'm assuming you also did your share of vSphere labs, or do you have a full big lab and didn't need this?
I do a little bit. I actually had a vSphere lab set up at work for a long time, and then the hands-on labs from VMware are usually pretty useful for a lot of things. So I haven't really used Ravello much for the vSphere labs. It's more for the open source stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. And Mr. Crape, how are you? What's your lab kind of overall usage look like from high level?
So Very similar to the others. I've used it heavily in the past for tinkering around VMware, vSphere, that sort of stuff. For a while, I was looking at some Microsoft certifications. Can't remember the exact exam numbers, but using them to build out the blueprint, saying, you know what, I need a AD machine, DNS, all that sort of stuff. The blueprints, I think, were real nice in that regard, in that I could build out different scenarios and, sort of start net new on them if need be. Being a lab, you tend to break things. So being able to roll things back to the base blueprint again, that's nice. I've even used it for things in the past, like when I was studying for a Veeam exam, and you have this remote component that you need that you might want to test out. So using Ravello for that sort of thing has been great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially these days, right? Laptops. There was a sweet spot, right, where you could use a even a laptop or kind of a powerful desktop, or where that or you could take some old machines and take them home, and depending on your cost of power, and your ability to get the fans out somewhere in a different room, you could have a home lab, even an industrial strength home lab. But it's been challenging. I mean, I use a MacBook, but there's just not that much memory in there, and at some point you hit a ceiling with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really liked about using it is that it's also remote, in the sense of, if I do want that remote connectivity, if I want to see how something works outside of my home lab in my house, I sort of have that remote environment, that jump box, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we're getting more to the case. We're getting more to a world where we want everything. I don't want anything local at this point, right? I wanted to be able to access it from anywhere. So, hey, Rohan, I want to ask you. So when we set this up back in the day, we expected a lot of this nested vSphere use. We also expected that it would be easy labs and things like that. Spin up open source. That was the repository was there for blueprints and open source. Sounds, pretty typical use cases. What folks haven't done, again, this is labs. Everybody has a day job. That's why we're offering this. I don't know. Could you talk a little? But there are some other use cases. Are there any other that come to mind that you see out in the world right now? We'll talk about maybe more of the OCI and some of the advanced features, bare metal, in a minute. But I don't know. Is this a fairly typical spread of use cases for people in non-production?
Yeah, there are some other use cases, and our more popular ones, there are three very popular ones that are used by enterprises and ISVs. So basically, a lot of independent software vendors, they have to create products, and then they have to go ahead and sell those products and train on those products, right? So around those three different activities, there are three use cases that they can use Ravello for. So while they're creating their products, they use Ravello in the dev test domain. So basically, every time that around the time of the release, usually when people use data centers, they either have to over provision and then have their data center being underutilized, and only around the time of release is when their usage spikes. So it's a very bursty nature of use. So that's where Ravello comes in, and then they do. So ISVs don't have to invest that much in their data centers right away and use Ravello for dev test environments as and when needed, and then that can be shut down when not. So then beyond that, once the product is made, when they want to demo the product, so that's when it is used for the same. The product can now be demoed using a Ravello. You can give all your sales engineers, everyone, a Ravello account. And in fact, we have a program running within Oracle itself where the sales engineers use Ravello to demo other products as well. So basically, and since you have layer 2 networking and whatnot, a lot of companies would be able to showcase the full feature set to their customers using Ravello for POCs and demos. And then you have also a training use case where a company, for example, Red Hat, who has a presence mostly in North America, but sells their products all around the world. So they have partners all over the country and the world. And so they use Ravello to train their partners as well as customers, so that their reach is much farther out than they would have if they were just running out of data centers.
Nice. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Somebody just told me, actually, Amy was online. I thought I was being clever by moving my camera sideways. And
Okay.
no, it turns out it wasn't smart enough to switch my camera around. So, but anyway, I flipped my camera around here. We're looking at Kona, Kailua Kona, which is the ancient seat of Hawaiian kings that we've now turned into a row of t-shirt shops. So, yes, but it's beautiful. Anyway, so, yeah, no, I mean, you also saw, is this me again? No. You also saw, Rohan, yeah, that there were, sorry, I'm trying to turn my camera on now. You also saw that there were, yeah, we talked Red Hat and some other stuff there just now. Well, hey, so I think it's really, I think it's been useful for everybody, and everybody's really grateful. So, hey, but what do you think of are the kind of the, I want to maybe what are some of the coolest, some of the coolest things. Actually, just before we get into more features, let's make sure everybody knows this is available to all vExperts, even the new 2018 vExperts. I don't know if we've advertised it that well. Also, it is 1,000 hours a month, renews, and it's also available for older vExperts because we just want people to use it and get to know it. And like I said, Oracle Ravello has been super, super generous. So somebody, I don't know, Matt, Atter, or Ben, if you want to jump in, any particular features that you like the best about it, or you think is kind of the most interesting, or you found it the most intriguing, or most useful, or funnest? And I'll call on somebody if you don't raise your hand.
I think Matt touched on it already. In fact, I have two favorites. One is blueprinting. So, whatever you want to do, you can have your recipes basically, and you can play with it to your heart's content, basically, and clone them and just make minor changes. And hey presto, you've got another one. So you can have pretty much a library of it. So that's one great feature. But the other one is actually networking in general, because you wouldn't normally expect a public cloud product to allow you such freedom when it comes to networking constructs, or doing things that typically you wouldn't be allowed to do on a public cloud environment. So,
yeah.
So I think that gives you a lot of freedom, and when used as a product in production or test or whatever, you basically linking it up with your on-premises environment, then it gives you a lot of freedom to move between the two environments or create environments in Ravello to do whatever you need and typically do on premises. So you don't have to change much. That worry goes away pretty much.
Yeah, I that's definitely been a piece that's been interesting. Even so, the Oracle Ravello team will actually be at the Chicago VMUG coming up here in a couple of weeks. I will not be there, but Niranjan will be there, and I think he'll be speaking on kind of the ability just to kind of to use that networking functionality or whatever and the rest of the features to kind of, I don't want to say clone or replicate because those both have technical meanings, but basically to take your whole data center design, app design, all the workloads, pull them up into a Ravello environment, in a very, very similar state, if not exactly the same, including networking, right? And then do whatever you need to do with upgrade testing, app testing, security testing, right? There's a lot of different use cases, even if you're not in production, because you can have that faithful replication, including the networking stack, right? Which is super cool. And maybe we'll dive into that in a sec. I don't know, Ben, you use the networking piece a lot, or is it, what do you like? What have you found the most interesting about the platform to you?
I haven't really used the networking that much. I think the most interesting thing I found is the repo. I think it's a really cool way to share projects with people. I think a lot of times you just don't know what you have available. I think the Ravello is so powerful that you really just don't know what you can do sometimes, and you're going through and seeing what other people are doing with it is really handy. And I think it's a great way to share your ideas with other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of workloads there, and AutoLab is still one of the more popular ones up in the blueprints. It would be interesting to see more. I guess it just depends on what people work with, right? But it would be interesting to see more open source workloads be built up in there as, like you look at the Docker, the Docker repository, right? There's everything's up there in kind of a scary way, right? You can just you can pull stuff down. almost anything, and whether it's whether it's built correctly or not. It would be interesting to have some repos there, a broader width. Interesting. So, and Matt, how about yourself in terms of platforms, things you like about it?
I'm gonna go back to and say the blueprint again. What I really like about that is, you can customize so much in there. How many VMs or machines do you need? What sort of specs do they need? The networking. But then you can also share it out. I like to think of a use case of, say you need to set up labs, where you've got 5 teams and they all need sort of same lab setup. Something like the blueprint to me is awesome for that, because you just configure it once, and then like we were talking about the library there, teams could go in there and basically take that and start using it. So it saves you a lot of configuration right off the hop.
Yeah. Well, Matt, there's a lot of, let's see, I don't want to turn this into, I want to look at the wider realm here, though. Like, there's a lot of ways to, I think specifying configuration is a very potent and current topic in our field, right? And that means everything from cloud formation and Terraform, and now VMware has whatever they call cloud, whatever they have. Somebody will remember. And then you obviously have things like Ravello blueprints at VMworld. I saw a couple of different. I talked to actually several different companies who have some sort of a blueprint-y style capability. And in fact, I remember a couple of years ago, people, when they first saw the blueprint, Ravello blueprint capability, people were like, "Oh man, I wish VMware had this, because I need this for VRA or whatever they were using." So I don't know, Matt. And without kind of, I don't want to say, I don't want to get into a competitive like this does this and that does that. I don't know, but in terms of the state of any comments on kind of the state of cloud configuration or app configuration, and how, I mean, blueprint, the beautiful thing about the Ravello blueprints is they're lovely. The UI is wonderful, and I'm not a big fan of drag and drop a lot of times, but this is a time when it's really done. It's done really well. I don't know, any other thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, sort of depending on where you're looking at, right? That's when you start getting into things like Terraform that we've touched on. You can start looking at Chef and Ansible and all that sort of stuff, depending on where you're looking at, building out your configs and whatnot. And, the nice thing is that, once again, all those do work in Ravello. If you do need a spot where you want to start tinkering around with that sort of stuff, it's a great location for that.
Mm-hmm. Ad or Ben, any other thing about kind of the wider world of cloud configuration or app configuration?
Sorry, I was just going to say that I was thinking about on the same lines that, maybe the automation can be sort of enhanced, that blue sky thinking, if you like, that we know that the REST API can be used to deploy all those IaaS features. But I was just kind of hoping that, Ravello's API becomes richer in the sense that you can provide the control or functional type commands as well, so that it becomes more like CloudFormation. So it's not just deploying the objects themselves, but also create some sort of conditioning statements in there, or saying that, right, okay, deploy 10 of these and then do this with that. So it becomes more richer in the sense that you can then use it for many other things, or even automate your blueprints. So not just for deploying the automation, and then it becomes, currently you can sort of achieve the same kind of thing by having Ansible or those other configuration management tools, but you then have to create that server first in the first place. Why not just make the blueprint and the API basically so powerful that it actually does all of those functions together in one template? So that's what kind of I was thinking, that I wish Ravello had that as well.
Mm-hmm. So Rohan, the way I'm thinking about it is, I know you're part of OCI now, right? And so that, I know OCI has, people can use Terraform and people can use other open source tools. How are you guys in the Ravello team at thinking about automation and about the blueprint side? Does that become part of the bigger public cloud in this case? The nice thing is it's still still super useful that Ravello continues to be cross cloud, right? And you're able to deploy the same thing on different clouds, or even in different locations. So Rohan, how are you guys? I mean, without divulging any NDA roadmap or anything like that, how are you all? Is the current automation and blueprint in use by the customer set? Is there things that you guys are looking at and directions of taking it?
There are some updates that are going on right now, and actually some of the a larger update has been in the pricing side of things. We've created new tiers of deployment now. Earlier it used to be just cost and performance optimized. Now there are 3 different tiers: standard, enterprise, and bare metal. And pricing has also been updated since and it has become a lot cheaper. So that's where a lot of our development efforts have been in that area. And we're also looking at, and there have been corresponding changes within API and automation also. But I'm definitely taking down notes today, and I'll have discussions with the engineering team to see what we can do to make it easier for customers.
Mm-hmm. It's already pretty good, pretty easy. Hey, so why don't we open it up a little bit to the panel? I know I saw Ian's here. Ian, we were going to tag you to be on the panel, but I didn't think you were available. Ian, if you're here, or I also see Val or anybody else want to jump in just for a sec and talk a little bit about, I don't know, I think we've just kind of, the topic on the table right now is pretty broad, right? Features, things you like about it. We'll get into things we don't like about it in a second. We'll talk about networking in a second, but I don't know, anybody on the call want to jump in? Just go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll give you a couple seconds. Or I will unmute you. Ian, you there? You don't have a camera.
Ian says he does not have a mic. Ian says he's here but no mic.
Val, you want to jump in? If not, that's okay. So, cool. Well, then I am going to switch to things that you do not like about it, or things that maybe, or well, you can talk about networking too. But the things you don't like about it are things that are that have been frustrating, or that are kind of a hassle, especially in the lab context, right? Because again, we've seen, right? It's a platform that serves a lot of different use cases. So things you don't like, or workarounds maybe that you've had to do in your own particular lab case. I mean, again, sticking in a vSphere plus a bunch of workloads, you'll pop open your 1,000 CPU hours pretty fast. I know in the chat people have mentioned, go ahead and there are scripts to make sure you turn things off and things like that. But I don't know. I don't know. Ben, any particular areas that you've had to do workarounds on, or in a DevOps context that you would like to see maybe a little different?
I mean, it's mostly been pretty straightforward. Obviously it's, I think a lot of people have mentioned that the networking is always a challenge. The biggest problem I had is I was trying to set up an OpenShift environment and getting the network to pass through to the OpenShift environment once I got it set up. That was a challenge I didn't really have time to solve, so that's something I'm still working on.
Mm-hmm. Well, Red Hat still is using Ravello for a lot of their training, I believe. So hopefully that's solvable. But that's interesting, right? Because it's a full friggin' OpenStack, and not OpenStack. OpenShift is a fairly large number of components. Was that hard to kind of get all up and installed and things like that before you hit the networking problem?
The installation is pretty straightforward. A lot of the problem comes from when you're setting up the original Ansible script to install the OpenShift. You have to set up a network address, and the internal network address that you have for the environment you set up isn't the same as the ultimate NATed address. So somewhere there's a setting that you can set up a pass-through, but I haven't had time to dig in to find it. And you're right, though. It is frustrating because I do believe the OpenShift course on Red Hat is on Ravello.
They should print, maybe. Maybe they do. Cool. I don't know, Matt. Anything in your on the don't or workaround column for you?
We touched on networking there, and it's one of those things where I like to think of it as It could be fairly complicated to get what you're trying to do done, but at the same time, the networking in the Ravello systems is quite powerful in that they will let you do a lot of the stuff, right? If you need to open up ports, access your Windows server via remote desktop, you could do that, which is pretty cool. The only other real big challenge that I've found that I've had is speed. Like especially when you're starting them up, it used to take a while. Often I'd forget that I had it running because squirrel, I'd go start doing something else. That being said, since they've given us some bare metal access in some of those regions, the speeds have definitely gotten a lot better in that regard. So I can actually wait for VMs to boot and whatnot. Well, I found the easiest workaround for me though is don't try to actually build out the machines in Ravello. If you can, you build them locally on vSphere and then use the uploader and upload them to Ravello, and that'll just save you a lot of time and aggravation.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about the labs here for a second, or the bare metal stuff, as you might realize, if you think about it, right, the Ravello service, it runs is a VM, right? And it's a thin hypervisor inside of a VM, which could be on any cloud. The tricky part with again, Oracle's been super generous, and they gave us some bare metal stuff, and we're talking about in the future, maybe provisioning some more. But as you might imagine, and this happened at VMware as well, right? Actually provisioning bare metal instances for vExperts, right? That's not a VM. Those are even a bunch of VMs, right? Those are actual real machines, which have real capital costs. So we evidently, I was not involved in all the decisions, but there were some, they did give it to us for a while, but there was always capacity for these things. Is always, these are not like garage sale machines either, right? These are real machines with a huge amount of memory.
No,
So
it definitely is a fantastic vExpert perk, no doubt about that, right?
Well, good. I'm glad. But yeah, it's the speed. Again, for the testing use case works really well if you're not on bare metal or upgrades, or what's going to happen if I do that. That sort of that whole lab environment makes more sense. The production workloads happen, a little bit more on bare metal or on the assisted virtualization if you're running on the Oracle Cloud. Well, I don't know. Who didn't we hit? Ater, what in terms of your any pet peeves there? Anything like that? I'm just trying to find a chord that works here for me, so I don't run out of juice. But anything you guys? Yeah, anything you? How's your experience been in terms of don'ts or workarounds or things like that?
So yeah, one doesn't want to come across as ungrateful, because all the great things that you can do on Ravello, and I've been doing for years. Guys have already touched upon networking, on some rules that you can't create. If you could create in an automated way, that would have been great. But the thing I was talking about, that a little bit more on the automation side, if you could do more of that. So what I'm also getting at, that if those things are built into the automation side of it, then you can do end-to-end infrastructure as code, if you like, on Ravello. And that's basically pretty much everything that you do on other cloud environments as well. So that solves one problem, that you don't have to do pretty much everything that you do on Ravello. If you can do it with automation, that'll be great. Because then it also makes other things possible as well. So if you with automation, you can actually then push the boundaries of what you can actually do on Ravello. And so that's one of the things I would like Oracle to look at and say, yeah, can we just do that? That'd be great.
Yeah, this is all very good feedback. So thank you for that. I've been taking notes. So I'll definitely bring it up in our next meeting with the engineering side.
Oh, so Arthur, were you able to work around some of those issues as you looking for infrastructure as code?
In some cases, yeah. I wouldn't say work around all of them. It's basically things like you then tend to use a lot of PowerShell with whatever commands you've got available, and then do the traditional type of automation. So as you would do on any Windows or Linux, also Windows machines mainly, but whatever automation you can do manually. So what I'm getting at is that you can resolve a lot of those problems with traditional management tools, or you deploy it, say Ansible or other automation techniques. But that's not the real solution in that sense. I mean, it's just, I'm talking about things like the kind of thing that you can do in CloudFormation, for example. So all those things. So the workarounds are there in different scripting technologies that you can use in conjunction with the IS commands that Ravello offers. But yeah, I'm just talking about, finding that ideal.
Sorry, I was muted. So Adder, I love bringing up infrastructure as code. Again, that was a big, huge kind of, I mean, we've been talking about it for years, right? But it seemed more real this time, this year at VMworld. Did you, and you work from home. You work for various companies. You work for a software vendor. I mean, you've worked for a consulting company that work with very big companies, but I think we're getting to this infrastructure as code thing is within our grasp, and I guess that's what we've been talking about for the past couple minutes. But how do you see an IT professional, if you can project yourself into the next couple years? I mean, as an IT professional who has worked all over the world, and you work in the UK and in Europe. I mean, what's the role of a home lab or a cloud lab? Are we all just going to have some public? Is public cloud going to be cheap enough that we're going to all have spend 20 pounds a month, and it's like a couple of cups of coffee? Or are we going to need, I mean, Ravello, this thing is, I'm not trying to, in other words, what do you see as the future? Is it just going to become normal? We'll all just have infinite capacity, or are we going to have specialized tools, or are we going to go back to boxes in our closets? I mean, what do you see as yourself, if you project yourself, 5 years into the future in terms of lab use and IaaS, infrastructure as code?
Well, I hope that I have such capacity available to me at, just like any other utility, and it's cheap enough for me to consume. It will obviously depend on how cheap these services become. I don't think that, the kind of lab uses that we have, or the kind of things that we want to play with, the more capacity we have, we're going to consume it. I think you know that. Even in my home lab actually contains, well, a few quite beefy servers.
Big notes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that capacity, the thirst for it is never going to go away. But if you think about, the different options that have become available, I think all the IT professionals, in my case as well as others, I'm sure, that as people or companies try to go towards multi-cloud, to skill up yourself, your lab also needs to become multi-cloud enabled. If you want to sort of compete in this space and just learn all the time, even if it's not a huge amount of resource at the other end of it. So, for example, I mean, you could have a few machines in AWS, few in Google, few in Oracle, Ravello, everywhere. Basically, you have connectivity to do all of them. So it's not about the size of your lab, I guess. It's more about how distributed it is, and then you basically, it's just, so I think from capacity, you should, or I would definitely go that way. I'm already on that path. If I can get a bit of time, that just have connectivity to all of them. It doesn't have to be fast connectivity. It doesn't have to be a lot of machines. It's just that I think it's a more general lab is going to be the lab of the future, I guess. Instead of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just remember to put price. Just remember to put price alerts on everything, right? Because you don't want that. You don't want that surprise at the end of the month.
Exactly. It has to be auto shut down 2 or 3 machines. At least you have that, or at least you know how to connect to it, how to create things. You play with it. But yeah, billing, alerts, shutdown scripts, all of that. And if it's like Ravello, the best thing, you just set it when you're going to run something and it automatically shuts down after 2 hours or whatever. And that, I think, is a very, very nice feature.
So Matt, and you do you have a prediction for the future in terms of infrastructure as code and IT professionals or lab use, that sort of stuff?
In classic IT, form, I think it depends. I have no doubt that infrastructure as code is it's only increasing in popularity, and it makes sense, right? Even just from think there's a DR standpoint, if you could stand up your entire infrastructure at a DR site just by running a script, well, you're in pretty good shape, right? Let alone all the day-to-day uses. As for, will everything be cloud-based? There's always going to be security concerns around the cloud, plain and simple. Some places just won't let you have their data outside their four walls. And the other thing is, we always have to consider, a lot of us are geeks. We like to see flashing lights. We like to push buttons and turn nerd knobs and all that sort of stuff. So I think we're definitely going to see a drastic increase over time as far as cloud usage. But I don't think it's necessarily ever going to be 100%.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of your lab usage, do you think you'll always just will you always need to have for the next stage, like yourself? Do you see yourself having a little AWS, GCP, Azure, Oracle, etc.? Do you keep a little balance in all those accounts to use them, or
absolutely?
What do you?
Considering, yes, they're all competitors, but they're also all partners, right? You got VMC on AWS. There's partners. Well, you've got Horizon running on Azure. VMware on Microsoft. The ecosystem's just getting really blended, regardless of what sort of technologies you use. They're all partners. And if you really want to stay on top of your skills and keep developing them, as an IT professional, you'll need to be able to dabble with all those technologies. I mean, it's great in the sense of $5 or $10 a month could go a long way to, getting you introduced with all these different technologies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. And the nice thing is these are all, you can start with very small amounts. And in fact, if we're really good, I hear some crazy things on Twitter going like, yeah, I set up this service and I was using serverless, or I was using a small instance, and I spun it up and spun it down, and I'm running this whole website and it cost me 52 cents this month, right? So you can really
exactly.
You can optimize these things in a way that some other models are not. And I mean, VMware Cloud I love, but it's still, even if with one machine, right, it's you're getting a whole machine, and again, that's a whole different cost basis of reality. Hey, Ben, I think it's kind of interesting, and again, we're using you as a proxy for all of kind of DevOps, I guess, at this point, but I think it's interesting, Docker itself, which again is not all of the container world, but Docker is spending a lot of time and effort on local Docker on Windows, Docker on Mac, because the local experience is important, especially for a developer. And their whole goal, right, is to make sure that it works the same everywhere on all these different clouds. I don't know. What do you? Same question in the future in 5 years. Are you going to just be running locally and it's all going to be invisible? Are you going to have accounts everywhere? I mean, how does the Ravello thing? I think has been even a few years ago when we first a lot of IT pros got MacBooks and topped out their RAM. I think Ravello at that point became a huge godsend. If we could just getting some quick and dirty stuff done. I don't know, Ben, what do you think about the future of infrastructure as code and locality?
Well, I mean, as far as infrastructure as code, I think that's a big challenge that a lot of sysadmins or traditional infrastructure people are facing. And even if they aren't facing it now, I imagine they'll see it in the future. As someone who recently experienced the job market unexpectedly, I was surprised at just how many people were looking for not just cloud experience, but automating to the cloud experience. And I think it's a huge thing moving forward to make sure that, not only do you know how to automate to the cloud, but, different clouds, different tools to automate to the cloud, and at least have a working knowledge of all the different types. So, I mean, I think that's great. One of the great things about Ravello is You can spin up different things, try different things, and it makes it really easy to do so, especially without accidentally running up too much of a charge on your personal credit card, which tends to happen with some of the cloud environments if you're not careful. I know that even on the free tier with AWS, if you're not paying attention, you can still find a way to run up your credit card.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, for me, infrastructure as code, definitely. I mean, I think that's the future. I think everything's going to be automated, and people need to start working on their skills right now, and if they haven't already got a head start on that. As far as data location, I think hybrid clouds are probably going to be the way to go. I think that's why it's important to not only focus on one primary cloud, but make sure that you're aware of what all the other clouds are doing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the past year, the past 6 months, I've been briefed by Dell and HPE, and I've did an interview with Lenovo, and I mean, there's very cool hardware coming out. Don't get me wrong, man. It's actually, I was trying to talk some people into making a new video blog that's just hardware beauty shots, right? Because there's so much cool stuff going on. But I think you're right in that there's some very specific use cases, right? That these hardware that will take advantage of the hardware, AI, or things like that can run locally and needs a lot of memory or a lot of interconnect or a lot of GPU. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think, Ben, a touch point that maybe I didn't quite realize, but I do think that I heard a lot of automation here at VMworld this year, and I think it's really pretty true that shoot, we've been talking automation for years, right? But it's becoming more and more important, whether it's PowerShell or whatever. So Ben, you thought in your recent job search, you thought so automation was a big advantage for you, or a big touch point for people who were looking?
No, I was actually saying that it kind of caught me off guard how expected it was. So I'd kind of got ramped up a little bit on automation and just the whole DevOps mindset, but I really wasn't an expert by any means. And while I was looking for a job, a lot of the cloud architect jobs I was looking for, automation was key. They wanted heavy automation skills, even for something that seemed like a traditional VMware architect role. They were still looking for a lot of automation. So
yeah, well, shoot, I mean, yeah, if anybody's spinning up VMs by hand in production, you're probably doing it wrong at this point. Or hand tuning stuff. My God, don't log in and hand tune anything, please. Hey, so we're reaching the end of our hour. I don't know. I've kind of hogged all the time. I was going to let people ask if there were questions or anything, jump in to our panelists or to Rohan. I don't know. We didn't touch on, I think somebody asked earlier on EUC. Has anybody done any EUC? And other people were asking. Maybe we can get more into the networking piece, which is pretty interesting. But I don't know, any EUC or any other use cases? I'll just throw it out there just while we're waiting. If anybody else, if anybody has any questions. Matt, did you talk about EUC, or did I imagine that? Desktop wise, I think you talked about you could at least use it as a jump box or something, right? Okay, well, I think look, if there are questions, let me know. I'm looking at the chat right now, but the program is cool. So keep if you have cool ideas, we'd love to work with you more closely. Like if you're working on a cool project, if you're here and you took an hour of your time today, or as you're watching this on the recording, mahalo, which is Hawaiian for thank you. This is, we value your participation, and really, Oracle has been super generous over the years. If you're working on cool projects or have cool ideas, I am happy to hook you up with the team. They would be interested in hearing what's going on. The vSphere idea is, the vSphere labs are very cool, and they're very interested in helping you all do that. We didn't talk really about non-vSphere labs, so basically just using it as a VM, right? That not running vSphere. But if you're testing other apps, whether it's something like Docker or whether it's open source, anything open source, right, that you want to run, and it's pretty easy to get going. So if you have some cool ideas, or if you're working on a project, or if you need more time and you have a project, right, just let us know. Let Amy and I know. We're happy to kind of facilitate that. There are some other developments coming, both in the OCI side and other sides, but I can't, I don't, again, nothing can be announced till it can be announced. We all know that. So there are some very cool things in the pipeline. And again, if we can help in any way, make you more productive, or make your stuff cooler, or promote your stuff even, let us know. That's what we're, that's what we're here for. I don't know, final last words from everybody. I don't know, like as you guys can, as everybody can tell, this was a little bit of an improv. We had a couple of questions that I'd seeded the panel with. I didn't even have them in front of me, but so not to put anybody on the spot, but I'm looking at you, Ben, right now on my iPhone screen. Any final words from you in terms of the labs, or the I don't know, Ravello in general? I think it's an amazing that it works as well as it does, but it's become very cool over the years, and I'm really I still am excited about the kind of the cool stuff you can do with it. I don't know, Ben, any last words?
Yeah. Mostly, I just want to thank Ravello for continuing to offer this to the vExperts. I've always been a fan of it. I think it's one of the best perks that vExperts get. I really appreciate the free hours and being able to set up the labs. And like I said, I do think it definitely helped me in my job search, being able to test out new products that I was hearing about, but didn't really have time to set them up in my own home lab.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thanks. Ater, any thoughts for you? You also, in your current gig, you see a lot of different clouds. So you may have your own, you may just be able to open up the employee lab. But thanks so much again for being here. And again, you've been using Ravello for a long time.
That's okay. Like I said, Ravello has for many years have been the place that I go to test many things, even though I do have my local lab, but it's not always in a state, and you can't always, bring up things that you want to do, especially because of the repos. You can bring up things very quickly. So that has always been a great help in even preparing for exams, for example, or the things that are not available in online labs anymore. You can quite quickly, provided you have the images, you can bring up some older labs if you still have the blueprints and the ISOs. But like I was saying, that that automation piece, if that's something that can be enhanced, that would increase the ease of use and configuration aspects of it. And then people can start bringing up not just the repos, but also the code that then brings up a certain environment, and that will make testing environments easier as well as the lab environments. And think of the other thing that you can do. So for example, it's then as an IS platform, the OCI side of it, for example, you can, and especially with an addition of a load balancer, for example, if a load balancer or a native load balancer is introduced, then you can have auto scaling groups, for example. And that great use case for any cloud these days, to be able to auto scale up or down a particular bunch of machines. So those kind of things become available and possible. And so I would say that, work on that and give us something on those lines.
Nice. Hey, Matt, last word from you?
Yep, just really a big thanks to Ravello for giving us access, the vExperts access over the years. It's been fantastic that all we need is a web browser, and it gives us real benefits for our careers. Be able to test out software, whether or not we have a home lab or not. It's it's a fantastic benefit. So thank you.
Yeah, well, great. Well, Rohan, you just got a lot of compliments. So, but thanks again. Thanks for being here. Rohan, you want to give us our final word? I'll take the last word. I'll make some funny joke or something. But any final words from?
No, all I'll say is, I really appreciate all the compliments first of all, and all the feedback as well. It's great to see that a product that I've been working on for a while is being used and is helpful to so many people. So it's very satisfying as well for me. So just keep. I'm going to do my best to keep the community to engage with the community as well, and hopefully we can have. Use it a lot better and a lot more for everyone's benefit. Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate everybody jumping in. Panelists at the last minute. Take everybody here who's taken an hour out of their day. And I am going to go back to the lovely state of Hawaii. I don't know what else to say other than I'm going to have some papaya and and chill here by the on the lanai, looking down at the ocean. But hey, we're going to have some great lab stuff next month and some more news. We'll keep on doing. Feel free to reach out if we can help it anyway. Thanks all. Aloha. Aloha, everybody.
Aloha.
Cheers.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye bye.